Don't stop me, 'cause I'm having a good time, having a good time. I'm a shooting star leaping through the sky like a tiger, defying the laws of gravity. I'm a racing car passing by.
Hello everybody, this is Brandon, and just now looking at the new Chosen Axes release for Shadespire, Warhammer Underworlds Shadespire. At the time of recording, this has just come out, and these are the new Fire Slayers. So I wanted to get a real quick series of videos just to show my initial impressions of the cards. This is the first time I'm looking at them, and I just wanted to share my thoughts on looking at the different cards and what they mean for the state of the meta and people looking to play these factions or even other factions with the generic cards in here. So I'm starting with the Chosen Axes. We'll have another video or series of videos for Spikeclaw's Swarm, the Skaven, that have also come out at the same time. And I've divided these up. I'll probably do these as separate videos, discussing the cards that are specifically for the Chosen Axes, as well as the cards that are generic that come in this set, because as you can all imagine, these are going to have huge effects on the meta no matter which faction you're playing. So to start off with, we'll look at the dwarves themselves, the Dwarden themselves, that come in the set. And we'll start with the leader, Fjolgrimnir. Alright, so right off the bat, he's very slow. This is going to be Sepulchral Guard level slowness. Beyond that, he's got a respectable 4 hit points and a shield defense dice, 1 defense dice. So right off the bat, he's slow, which is going to be problematic. He's got uninspired Stormcast level defense, or Ironjaw level defense. His attack, that is strong. 2 hammers is probably going to hit, if not crit, and starting at 3, that is an immense amount of damage to start off with. And he inspires whenever he holds an objective in the action phase. So right off the bat, you can see all of these Fire Slayers are going to be inspiring under the same objective condition. So these are very much being steered in a way to seize objectives, which of course is going to be difficult with a movement speed of 2. Let's go ahead and get him excited. Okay, Inspired Fjolgrimnir. He gets a little bit faster, and interestingly, we haven't seen this before, he's gaining hit point. So at this level, he's got Gurzag level toughness. But the real takeaway here is that attack. On top of gaining cleave, he's doing 4 damage base. That is enough to one-shot anybody in the game except for himself or Gurzag. And he's just 1 +1 damage bump from possibly great strength, being able to one-shot Gurzag or himself. So that is amazing. He doesn't get any more accurate. But I think at this point in the game, that's not going to be a huge issue, especially because he has that cleave ability. Alright, so we'll move on from him to, let's see, based on the description, it looks like this gentleman here, Tefik Flamebearer, is kind of his second in command. And we've seen that most of the decks seem to have a second in command figure, whether it's Bone Kutta for the Ironjaws, or perhaps Bloodied Sake for Khorne, or it's hard to say which of the Stormcasts would be considered second in command. We'll talk about that in another video, but this seems to be the guy. Alright, so right off the bat, you have 2 attack options. The first attack is going to do 2 damage, which is not much, and it hits on 2. His other option is a single attack, which is only going to do 1 damage. Now that's pretty awful, but the thing is, at 3 hammers, he's almost always going to hit. So this guy right now represents some of the most reliable damage you're going to see in the game. His downsides, he's just as slow as his Fireslayer Kindred and the Sepulchral Guard, so it's going to be extremely difficult getting him to a useful place. And at only 3 wounds on a single defense dice, it is a shield, but this guy can be very easily one-shotted. Like Fuel Grimnir, he's going to inspire under the same conditions. Let's get him excited. Alright, so interestingly, he kind of combines his 2 attacks and gets the best of both worlds. At 3 hammers, he's almost always going to hit. He's doing an impressive 3 damage. That's getting into one-shot territory against a lot of your enemies. And if you roll a crit, which on 3 dice is highly likely, you're getting cleave on top of that. So that's extremely accurate. We see the same benefits that Fuel Grimnir gets upon being inspired. You get a little bit faster, and you get 1 more hit point. The problem is, though, by the time you get him inspired, he might already be wounded, so that might not do you a lot of good. So as far as second in command territory, I wouldn't quite put him on Bloodied Sake's level or Bone Cutter's level, but he is pretty solid if you can keep him alive. Okay, we'll move on into these gentlemen. Yeah, let's do these one at a time. Because interestingly, just kind of glancing at these, I'm not seeing what we would think of as a chaff option. Say, for example, your Petitioners, your Targor and Arnulf, or your Haka and Basha. Obvious chaff units that are just kind of there to get in the way. Both of these remaining guys seem to have kind of their own thing going for them. They're definitely weaker than Tefik or Fuel Grimnir. However, they do seem to each have their own specific thing, as opposed to just being kind of useless copies of each other. So we'll start with Vol Orruk Bane. He's got a great axe, definitely very much of a bone cutter type figure. 2 attack dice with hammers, 2 damage, and normal Fireslayer stats as far as speed, defense, and hit points. Nothing special to write home about here. This guy is going to pale in comparison to most of your mid-range fighters in any other faction. This guy is about analogous to one of the non-chaff Sepulchral Guard. Let's get him excited. Okay, so he is gaining 3 damage. That puts him in Bloodied Sake territory, and knockback 1, which is going to be very useful for him, especially because these guys are not fast. Now, keep in mind, as I give these opinions, these are the first time I'm seeing any of these cards beyond what they've shown on Warhammer Community and the Shadespire website. So all of my opinions may change on seeing the types of upgrades that these guys have available to them. So right off the bat, I'm not really blown away by anything Vol is doing here. He's solid. But again, at 1 defense dice and only 4 hit points when inspired, or 3 when not, this is going to be a guy that you're going to struggle to keep alive. Okay, moving him along, and Mad Magra. And he definitely seems like, if there is a chaff unit within the Chosen Axis, it seems like it should be this guy. But, so his basic attack is 1, that's your big chaff signifier there. Standard Fireslayer stats that we're expecting by this point. And he's throwing 3 dice, and he's looking for daggers, which, this is not great. However, once he gets inspired, he's getting faster, he's getting tougher, and he's going up to 2 damage. And the nice bonus here, you can reroll 1 attack dice each time this fighter makes this attack action. So he goes from being definite chaff to probably stronger than any of the other chaff units that you're going to see in any of the other factions so far. With 3 dice, you're definitely, especially 3 dice with re-rolling one of them, you're probably going to get a crit. And 2 damage at this point from what we would probably consider a chaff unit is nothing to sneeze at. So let's go ahead, and with that in mind, we'll set him aside, and we'll go ahead and start looking at the Fyreslayer specific cards. And let's start with their objectives, because that's where you make your money. Okay, so I'm going through these in no particular order. They've been kind of shuffled around as I've sorted them for the purposes of making this video. So these are not going to be the order that you see them when you unbox them. So starting off, we have a claim retaken, 2 glory points. Score this in an end phase if a friendly fighter holds an objective that an enemy fighter held at the beginning of the preceding action phase. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm seeing a lot of moving parts. This is going to be difficult to pull off because this is going to dictate the actions of at least 2 of your guys, and you've only got the 4. And in a game where you've only got around 12 activations, card nonsense withstanding, this is really going to dictate a lot of what you do. First, you're going to have to remove... First, it requires your opponent is going to have to at some point sit on an objective. And with a lot of decks in the meta being objective ignoring, that may make this card useless. Unless you want to do some shenanigans with, say, moving an objective under them, or possibly knocking your enemy onto an objective and then to knock them off. Still, though, you can do this in any end phase, and it's worth 2. So it's worth considering, especially because I think considering your inspiration condition, you're very much steering towards, with Fyreslayers, going for those objectives. So this might be good. Let's keep that in mind until later. Next, we have a Grim Promise that is absolutely flavorful for Fyreslayers. Score this in an end phase if your warband took an enemy leader out of action in the preceding action phase. Considering, okay, this can be done by anybody in your warband. Considering you've got Fuel Grimnir, who is definitely tooled up to be a leader killer, and the combination of a great number of other objective cards built around assassinating your enemy leader, this is definitely going to be a strong option. For instance, if you happen to have, I believe there's at least 2 other objective cards based around killing the enemy leader, if you can get all 3 of these on the first turn, by one action, you can get all 3 of your opening objectives, which is going to put you in an extremely strong position to control the rest of the game. So yeah, that is definitely a strong choice, especially considering this guy is running around rocking 4 damage. That's just aching to kill Steelheart, Garrett Gorebeard, the Sepulchral Warden, and if you add 1 strength to him, then you're one-shotting Gerzag. Okay. The nice thing about this is not a card that can be invalidated by your opponent's build. No matter what, they're going to have a leader, and you can kill that leader. It may be difficult, mind you, but it's something that you're always going to be able to at least try to do. So I'm really liking that one so far. Next, Ferocious Charge. Score this immediately. Alright, I love any objective you can score immediately. If a friendly fighter takes an enemy fighter out of action with a charge action. Okay, so this is an extremely easy objective to acquire, especially with a lot of these guys being very accurate, like Tefik here, or Magra. So this is something that you can very easily accomplish. Yeah, it's only 1, but it's score immediately, which increases the total number of objectives you might be able to score in 1 turn. So yeah, I'm really liking that one, especially with this particular warband. The biggest difficulty here, of course, is going to be actually reaching your enemy with that charge action. But that being said, it's any enemy fighter. So you take out, you know, Targor or Arnulf, which is really easy. You only need to do 2 damage. Taking out any of the petitioners, some of the Skaven chaff, and especially because most players like to lead with their chaff forward, it's going to be pretty easy to charge in and smoke one of those. Very much like the Lightning Strikes objective from Stormcast. And I'm definitely seeing a lot of kind of similar game mechanics with what you have with Stormcast and also Khorne Bloodbound, with the way these guys are shaping up. So yes, we've got so far, just out of the first 3 cards I've drawn, an okay situational objective, a really good objective, and another really good objective. So definitely strong options here. Alright, next card up, For the Urgold. Score this in an end phase if all of your surviving fighters, at least 3, are inspired. Oh, that's going to be hard to pull off. That's going to be extremely hard to pull off. Keep in mind, you have to get all of your guys inspired, which is going to require them sitting on an objective at the end phase of a turn. And your guys have a movement value of 2. Anybody who's played an objective-seeking Sepulchral Guard deck is going to know how difficult it is to get onto objectives with only 2 movement. So this one I'm kind of iffy about. I don't know. Maybe as we proceed into this deck, we're going to see a lot more movement shenanigans. I don't know. Fury of the Lodge. Score this in an end phase if all of your surviving fighters, at least 3, made a charge action in the preceding action phase. Okay, so this is very similar to, I believe there's an Ironjawz card that does this. There's a Khorne Bloodbound card that does this. This is really easy to pull off, and it's one of those that you definitely want to see in your first turn, because it's easy to pull off. However, again, we're running into that problem of they only have 2 movement. For you to pull off a charge action, you have to make it to somebody. So that might be more difficult than we're expecting to see out of, say, Ironjawz or Khorne Bloodbound. Hoarders. Score this in an end phase if all of your fighters and no enemy fighters are holding objectives. Yeah, it's worth 2 objectives, but just think of how hard that's going to be to pull off. You've only got 4 guys. 4 guys that waddle across the battlefield at 2. You've got to somehow keep all of your enemies off of objectives and get your own guys onto the objectives at the end of the turn. Yeah, you've got a lot of synergy with going for objectives that we're seeing so far, but I don't know how you're going to be able to pull this off without some serious movement shenanigans. Alright, Oath Still to Fulfill. Alright, score this in the 3rd end phase if none of your fighters are out of action. Ooh. Okay, so you've got a bunch of guys with 1 defense dice and 4 health when they're inspired, or 3 health when they're not inspired. And it's very likely these guys are going to die before they get inspired. It's a 3rd end phase card, which is major points against it, because you never want more than 1 of those in your opening hand. Preferably, you don't want any of them in your opening hand. So I know I personally don't like to put more than 1 or 2 3rd end phase objectives in my deck. And at the end of the day, for that feat, you're only getting 3 objectives. I am not liking this one, just off the bat. Alright, Scion of... Sorry about the glare there. Scion of Grimnir. Score this immediately, yes, if your leader takes an enemy fighter out of action. Okay, this is a no-brainer. Fuel Grimnir is running around hitting at 3 or even 4. You've got another couple of cards that are going to synergize well with taking out the enemy leader. And it's score immediately. This is awesome. Alright, Unstoppable Advance. Score this in an end phase if all of your surviving fighters are in enemy territory. Man, with a movement value of 2, good luck. You're getting 2 for that, but as difficult as that sounds, I don't know if this is going to be worth it. We'll see, because I'm starting to think, just from looking at these objectives, that we're going to see a lot of movement shenanigans type cards. Okay, so that is all of the Fyreslayer specific objectives and the Fyreslayers themselves from the Chosen Axes set. So at this point, we're at about 20 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video. We'll start a new one to look at the Fyreslayer specific upgrades and ploys. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.